It's me, it's Queen Oseharu, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. So, I had a subscriber ask me in the comment section about sexuality. They asked me, how would a person know if they're bi? Or are they just being trendy? Because right now, some people, not everybody, think that sexuality, having alternative sexuality as they call it, is trendy. So how do you know a person really is bi versus they just want to be down, you know? First of all, you should never do anything just to be down. I don't care what it is. If you do something, it should be because it's something that you want to do from your heart, first and foremost. Secondly, how do you know what your sexuality is? Well, if you study development, the development of a human being, when we're very young, sexuality is already coming up, 3, 4 years old. So a lot of us know then. A lot of people I know will tell you, I knew when I was 3, I knew when I was 4, I knew when I was 5, what my sexuality was. No matter what it was, they knew way back then. But some people don't. Some people do not. Some people, it takes them a lifetime to even admit it to themselves, regardless of what it is. I know a woman who had a whole family and raised her kids, and at 46 years old, realized that she was a lesbian. Got with the woman, left her husband, got with the woman, and has been with her ever since. And she told me she was always a lesbian. She just didn't realize that's what it was, and that it was okay. She had to give herself permission to accept herself. So we all figure this out at different points. I went to Creative and Performing Arts High School, and there were a lot of gay, lesbian, and bisexual, transgender young people there. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's because we have a tendency to be creative, maybe. I don't know. But it was a lot of us there. A lot of us there. So I've seen so many people go through their coming out process from the time I was 14 years old. The first club I snuck into was a gay club. So I've always been around that kind of energy and understood it. I've seen so many people come out. I've helped so many people deal with their sexuality. It's not even funny. So I've seen people at different ages, different stages. There is no one time. And how do most people figure it out? Some people just know from their internal navigation. They just know. It just dawns on them, And some people figure out through trial and error. I did not know that I was a lesbian. I started off, like I told you guys many times before, with no real preference between the two genders. I just thought whoever was cute was cute. Now, over time, through trial and error, I realized what worked for me and what I didn't like. So for some of us, we know, like I knew as a young lady that I was open to both genders, but I didn't know that I would be living as a full-blown lesbian by the time I was in my 20s. That I didn't know. I thought I was bi, and I was always going to be bi. But life has a way of showing you through trial and error what works for you. So different people figure out their sexuality at different times. The problem with sexuality isn't so much how do you figure it out. The problem with sexuality is that it's always somebody trying to police your sexuality. 9 times out of 10, you have people trying to police your sexuality. Either the society at large, your own family members. People are always trying to police how you express yourself sexually. So for many of us, that leads to suppression and repression. So that's why we find out and embrace it at different ages, because it takes us a while. I know it took me a while to break from the conditioning. Like, wait a minute, like, I had to break from that energy. And we all do that at different ages and at different times. And like I said before, regardless of what your sexuality is, anything from heterosexual to, lesbian, anything in between, it is a process and it's fluid, because I've seen some people go through this process and then come back. Like I have a good friend In high school, he figured out that he was a gay man. Through trial and error, he figured out that he was also interested in women. So now he lives as a bisexual man. So for like 10 years, he was exclusively seeing men. And then he started seeing women. Then he went back to men. And now he's back to seeing both. So people, it's fluid. It doesn't have to be one thing or another. It's really whatever is making you happy. And that's the one thing that outside people have a hard time with. But you don't worry about them outside people, because everybody's going to have an opinion about what you do. If you're straight or not, you can be heterosexual and people are still going to have an opinion about your sex life. I don't care what your sexuality is. There's somebody out there that's going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do with your sex life. The bottom line is you have to do with your sex life what you're comfortable with. So how do you know if you're bi? For a lot of people, it's going to be trial and error. And some of them already know, but they're just not open to accepting it or admitting it for the reasons that I stated earlier. My biggest thing to people is, regardless of what your sexuality is, embrace yourself, accept yourself, and don't expect everybody to embrace you and to encourage you and to be there for you. Expect that it's going to be people that's going to have a problem, and expect it's going to be people that don't. And keep it pushing. People that are homophobic or biphobic or transphobic or whatever kind of phobic they choose to be, I just don't allow in my circle. I just, just kind of push them out, like get over there. I don't like bigots of any kind. I don't care what it's about. If you hate entire groups of people, that's not my cup of tea. So I don't like bigots around me, period. So I always, just kind of push them out anyway. So when it comes to sexuality, if you can just remember that everybody is not going to be on the same page as you, everybody's not going to be as open-minded as you. Some people are going to use religion to hide behind, because really it's just hatred. And they'll hide behind religion. Like, no, it's religion. It's religion. Yeah, okay. It's hatred. And you hiding behind your big book because you don't have the kahunas to just say, I'm a hateful motherfucker. Bottom line, right? So when it comes down to it, if you can just keep that mindset and be okay with yourself, the bottom line is you have to love yourself. Nobody else has to love you. They don't have to love what you're doing. They don't have to understand your life. It's not their life, it's yours. And that's the whole point. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. A lot of people get stuck living their truth while still dealing with everybody policing their sex life. And I just came to a point where I was just like, look, y'all can police my sex life if you want to, but I don't give a fuck. I just came to that point, like, I don't care. I don't care. And I have a family, some of which were supportive and some of which were not. I didn't care. I didn't care either way, because like I said, there will be times when I have this one aunt and she would try to police my sex life and be loud and boisterous about it, and I would start policing hers, and she didn't like that. So what I've come to find is that the sword cuts both ways, and that's a game we don't need to play. All right, guys, it's time for me to get going. So that's the answer to the question. And if you would like to get a tarot reading, please email me. If you have a question for Asking an Aquarius, email it to me or drop it underneath this video. And likewise, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you know somebody who's wondering about this same thing, please pass this video on to them. Okay? See you later.